Welcome back to the Kosi Arsenal channel. My name is Kosi. Welcome back to a brand new video. Arsenal have a big decision to make this summer and we must get it right. It is so important that Mikel Arteta has been talking about it in each and every press conference that he has made since January. And that is Arsenal signing a new number 9. Arsenal signing a striker. Mikel has always been crying out for one. And this summer, it looks like Andrea Berta is going to be addressing just that. Now, Mikel Arteta is a big fan of Alexander Isak. Boy, oh boy, he loves Alexander Isak. But him and his team also agree that we are not going to get Alexander Isak. It's 150 million. And yeah, you're not going to do that deal unless you don't have other areas to take care of. Now, with Arsenal looking at 2 central midfielders, a new goalkeeper, 1 more defender, a winger, and other places, we might not get Alexander Isak. And Mikel Arteta is okay with that. So Arsenal have now zeroed down on 2 players that we are going to be choosing from. Victor Gyökeres, who is wanted by Andrea Berta, and Benjamin Šeško, who is wanted by Mikel Arteta and his team. In this video, we're going to be comparing these two. We are hearing stories that there is a bit of a divide in Arsenal on who should be our next number 9, Gyökeres and Benjamin Šeško. And I'm going to tell you, many of the aspects that we're going to talk about in this video are shared by these players. They're so close, yet so different. So in the comment box below, I want you to give me a reason why you want Šeško, a reason as to why you want Victor Gyökeres. Yes, I know many of you on this channel want Gyökeres, but why? Why Gyökeres over Šeško? Some of you just want Gyökeres because maybe the name sounds better. But personally, I give you my verdict and the player I want at the end of this video. So hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, get some popcorn. Let's dive into what are the similarities and the differences between these 2 players and how do they compare to each other. Now, Andrea Berta coming in, he has turned Arsenal's attention to the market opportunity there is in Victor Gyökeres. But of course, there's some reservations and there's some concerns about that. First and foremost, inside Arsenal and inside many people at the club, they feel it's a huge jump for Victor Gyökeres to come from Sporting to the Premier League. And they are not wrong. There are not so many players that have actually come from Portugal and made it into the Premier League, right? You have the likes of Diogo Jota, they've come and done it. You have the likes of Bruno Fernandes, they've come and succeeded. But when it comes to, the bigger picture, Arsenal are right about this Victor Gyökeres jump. It's a big jump from Sporting to Arsenal, first and foremost, but it's a big jump from Portuguese football to the Premier League. There is a mile between those 2 leagues. The Premier League is an intense league. It's a very high pressure league, and I think Victor Gyökeres scoring 40 goals and more in Portugal, that is because of the lightness of the league. In my opinion, it's a little bit easier over there as compared to the Premier League. So Arsenal saying we have our own reservations, we have our own concerns when it comes to Gyökeres. Can he come in and show us that he's going to do this job very well? That's number 1. And number 2, Arsenal have always had an injury concern on Victor Gyökeres. However, I'm going to back Victor Gyökeres on this one. I think it's out of nothing. And of course, you can never blame a club for having an injury concern on a player who's going to cost 60 million euros and above. You've got to look at his health. You've got to look at his durability, reliability, the way he feeds, how he treats his family, and everything. You don't want anything to get wrong, especially these days with players signing long-term contracts like Paqueta, and then you have the likes of Tonali, and then all of a sudden they suffer bans. You want to make sure that you scrutinize every aspect of the player. So that is the problem Arsenal have. Berta likes the player, but inside Arsenal, there are people who are saying he can't come from Portugal and do it. He's scoring a lot of goals, guys, because he is in Portugal. But is that true? He has scored 3 against Manchester City. So is it true that he only scores goals because he's in Portugal, or he's just a good goal scorer? Let me know. Now, when it comes to Benjamin Šeško, this is the deal that Arsenal were trying to do since last summer. And a lot of groundwork has been done on this one. That has been confirmed by David Onstein, Fabrizio Romano, and a couple of other reliable journalists out there. And what they're saying is simple. Arsenal have done groundwork on this deal, and they look at Šeško as the ideal player for the project. They like him, Mikel Arteta likes him, and if nothing changes, this is the player that would be second to Alexander Isak. But of course, something has changed. With Arsenal accepting and agreeing inside that we cannot get Isak, we have had to add another player into the complexion, and that is Victor Gyökeres. So what are some of the concerns that Arsenal have with Šeško himself? We've talked about them on the channel before. First and foremost, as well as Victor Gyökeres, Arsenal feel Šeško is a little bit young and he might not come in and explode right away. Now, of course, Arsenal don't need someone to come in and explode like Ronaldo or Messi, but they kind of feel like he might need a little bit more of time, right, to give us the desired results. And Mikel Arteta's project and phase might not actually wait for that. That's number one. Number two, there are also concerns about him coming from German and then, doing it in the Premier League. Actually, we have had so many German flops come from the German Bundesliga to the Premier League in recent memory. You have Timo Werner, one of them. You have, Kai Havertz. Is Kai Havertz a flop? I don't know. I mean, don't crucify me. Let me know what you think. Lukas Podolski, for me, he was a flop. He was a flop, honestly. He was a flop. So we've got a couple of players coming from German that are not actually doing it very well in the Premier League. So us to have concerns about that player as well. And that puts us in a situation where our two priorities have issues. Arsenal love Šeško, but they have issues with Šeško. Arsenal love Gyökeres, but we have issues with Gyökeres. So let's compare these two players and see who I would rather go with all the problems, with all the concerns that we've got about them. Number one, let's talk about the goal scoring rate, because this is very important for Mikel Arteta. He's always talked about effectiveness. Now, when Mikel says effectiveness, he means two things. One, we have a little possession, but in the final third, we are not that sharp, right? And secondly, when we create our chances, at times we don't take them. So can we create chances? Can we be a little bit sharper? Maybe a number 9 helps you to do that. And can we take our chances? Definitely, a number 9 helps you to do that. So when it comes to scoring goals, Victor Gyökeres is the guy. These are his numbers. In the last 3 seasons, he has scored 31 goals in the last 28 games. He scored 31 goals in 28 games. He scored 29 goals in 33 games. And then he scored 21 goals for Coventry in 49 games. I mean, he's averaging at least 30, I think at least 25 goals per campaign. And I think Arsenal would benefit from a player like Gyökeres. You just know you have 25 goals guaranteed from a player in a season. And we would argue that one of our best seasons, or if not, our best season in the last 10 years under Mikel Arteta, was when we saw Gabriel Martinelli score 15, we saw Martin Odegaard score 15, and we saw Saka score 15 as well. I mean, you need the goals. There's no question about that. So if you have a player in Victor Gyökeres that can give you 25, why not? Benjamin Šeško, in terms of scoring goals, is not bad himself, but he's been a little bit, I think he's a developing striker. We've got to understand that. He's still young, he's still developing, and his best days are ahead of him. The difference between Gyökeres and Šeško, Gyökeres is in his prime, and you can see the numbers, and you can see the goal scoring form, and then you can see that Šeško is still developing, is still working on his game. But in terms of goals scored, Šeško 11 goals this season in 28 games, 14 goals last season in 31 games, and 16 goals at RB Leipzig in 30 games. That tells you that he's scoring at least 1 goal per 2 games. That is not a bad rate. That is not a bad rate for a manager that wants 15 from Trossard, 15 from Saka, and 15 from Šeško, and 15 from Martin Odegaard. That is not bad. But what I want from Šeško and what I want from a striker is go and do what other players aren't doing right now. Like, I have a guaranteed 15 from Saka. I want a guaranteed 20. Is Šeško a guaranteed 20? Maybe comes into this Arsenal side. We create more, we dominate games a little bit more, and maybe he explodes. And also, you've got to ask a very, very important question. Who would score more goals in an Arsenal setup under Mikel Arteta? We'll answer that very, very shortly. So in terms of creativity, Mikel Arteta obviously wants players that are going to, nick it and try to play with others. You're going to try to create for others as well. You're not just a box striker for Mikel. He doesn't want box strikers that are waiting to be created for. He wants players that are going to come in and add value to the rest of the team, whereas doing their job. A very good example is the defenders. When you look at a player like Ben White, or you look at a player like Julian Timber, Timber would come into midfield, tuck inside. Lewis Kelly would come into midfield, tuck inside, create some chances, and do all this beautiful work that we love about him. But fundamentally, he's a defender, and Mikel Arteta trusts them that they will defend when duty calls. That is the same thing with the forwards. Mikel expects them to drop back and help out the team in terms of fetching for the ball and looking for it. Also, in terms of progressing the ball a little bit high up the pitch, they're expected to be there. But when it comes to scoring the goals and creating chances, they must do that job as well. So who's better in terms of creating chances? Šeško has created 3 assists this season, 2 assists last season, that is only in the German Bundesliga, and 5 assists for RB Salzburg in Austria, that is 2 seasons ago. When it comes to Viktor Gyökeres, he's not a monster in terms of creating for others, but he's actually good. 6 assists this season so far, 10 assists last season only in the league, and 12 assists for Coventry before he joined Sporting CP. Now, again, you might ask yourself a question. Are these numbers because he's playing for Sporting CP, he's their main man, he's the main target man, and therefore he's got all the access to score? These numbers can be replicated, and they're very similar to Bukayo Saka's numbers. And the reason for that is Saka is our main man. If you look at Gyökeres' numbers and Saka's numbers, they are really, really similar. And the difference, and the similarity between these two is because Gyökeres is a player that CP rely on in terms of GA, and Arsenal rely on Saka in terms of GA. But in terms of creativity, for now, according to the data, it is Viktor Gyökeres. Now, the playing style, because the playing style matters a lot when it comes to Mikel Arteta and modern football. Well, when you think about a club like Manchester United, and you think about their goalkeeping problems, they chased out David De Gea because the manager at the time, Erik ten Hag, didn't want a goalkeeper that wasn't comfortable with the ball at his feet. Right now, they brought in Andre Onana, and they're suffering, absolutely suffering, because he ain't that kind of David De Gea goalkeeper that's going to keep every ball out, right? But that is modern football. It comes at a cost. So, in terms of the profiles, let's start off with Viktor Gyökeres. I think Gyökeres is a player that is comfortable in space, like very comfortable in space. And I've seen a few people say, well, he's comfortable in space, he wouldn't get that kind of space in the Premier League. Yeah, and it's true. I mean, Premier League defenses are quite tight, and they're very organized, and they're expensive. They don't give you time, they don't give you space, they don't give you a lot of luxuries the way you would have in the Champions League, by the way, or the luxuries that you would have altogether in Portugal. But then I have a question. If Arsenal really think, or if we really think that Viktor Gyökeres wouldn't get the space to run in behind, what is Alexander Isak's game model? I mean, does Alexander Isak really play in tight spaces or in space? In my opinion, Alexander Isak really plays in space. And we've seen that with the way they play with Anthony Gordon, Isak, and Murphy. They really are devastating on the counter-attack, especially targeting spaces in behind. So Viktor Gyökeres is this kind of player that definitely would allow Arsenal to beat a mid-block so easily. Like, he would simply do that because Arsenal just need to play the ball over the wall in the middle, and then Gyökeres is away. He's got the pace, he's a sprinter, and he's got that one-man attack aura about him. Remember when Arsenal had like Thierry Henry, or when we had, which other player was so good at just being that one-man player? He could take the ball and you expect a goal. Ashavin, right? Sami Nasri, that kind of guy that just carries the ball and goes on and goes on and goes on, and you think he's gonna need support, and he doesn't need support. That is Viktor Gyökeres, and especially with Arsenal suffering with mid blocks, Viktor Gyökeres would be devastating for defenses. That is his playing style. When it comes to Benjamin Šeško, he can do that, but he can't be an Isak. And I think this is why Arsenal are very, very careful and trying to lean towards Šeško because they see elements of Alexander Isak in him. He can sprint, but he drops back so much. He's so much of a Gabriel Jesus, a taller Gabriel Jesus with a lot of pace and with a lot of directness. So for Mikel Arteta, it's understandable why he wants Šeško, and for Andrea Berta, the experience of Gyökeres will have attracted him to the player as well. So in general profile, I think Gyökeres, you're looking at a 26-year-old, soon turning 27, player in his prime, but you've got questions. Can he come to the Premier League and do it? With Šeško, you're looking at a 24-year-old who is very close to his prime, but you're just having questions. Can he blossom quick enough? And finally, who is my pick? I am going to go with Victor Gyökeres. Honestly, I think Arsenal are now signing profiles due to the phase we are in. And if this was 2 years ago, Šeško is a wonderful signing. 1 year ago, Šeško is a wonderful signing. But right now, with Arsenal looking to win, let's go for a winner. Let's go for a player that can get us goals, that can decide games. For me, that is Victor Gyökeres. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll speak to you.